Remember on part 1 when we had to stop because of the sewing of the strap on the upper cup? Well, we will move on from there as I told you in part 1. So I'm gonna start by sewing my strap, inserting the strap right side with right side facing together. I insert it between the two fabrics, and of course this would be much easier if I hadn't done the top stitch with the zigzag, but I have, so it's not that easy for me to do it, but it would be easy for you to do it. Just place right sides facing together with this in the middle, sew over the strap, and then do the zigzag as I explained. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this in place. I didn't cut the elastic, I only removed the threads, and so I just need to make sure that my strap is sewn in place. I have sewn my strap in place, and this strap is very easy because it has just the perfect angle to be sewn on a top like this one, which is practically horizontally on an horizontal line, so it's quite nice. And now I just need to do the zigzag like I have explained you on this side. So I open this, I go to my straight stitch machine, and I stabilize here just like we were supposed to do from one edge to the other, but now I need to do it here, and I will have my strap attached to my main cup. Now, as we talked, I'm going to try and make the impossible, which is without picking out this seam, tucking everything inside this to do the sandwich methods again that we have done on the bra. But I'm gonna try and do it because I'm not going to remove all these stitches, which would be terrible, and I don't have more fabric, so I'm gonna try and do it anyway. And so I align my outer fabric first with my two fabrics, these two. Maybe it's easier to do a basting stitch from one edge to the other, and that's what I'm gonna do, because it makes your life easier, because we will be then sewing 2 layers with this one and then with this one, and if these two are together and stabilized, it will make your life easier. So I'm gonna stabilize them together first, and then I'm gonna come back here to do what I was about to do. My basting stitch is done on my sewing machine. I just set my straight stitch to the longest stitch possible, and I loosen all the tension, and then I leave the tails in the end, which enables me to, once I'm done, pull the threads, and I'm gonna take out these threads from the basting. Now this is the moment in which it's a good idea to have marked the notch on your cup, which I haven't. As you know, I'm very lazy regarding marking the notches, but the notch is here, and so I'm gonna put a pin. I'm so lazy for notches. I'm gonna place a pin here. Okay, and now this is the inner and the outer, the inside and the outside of my bra, of my bikini. I'm gonna align the middle here, which is the place of my notch. I'm gonna place one pin here. Now I'm gonna align the opposite sides, this side here, again with a pin, and then I'm gonna do exactly the same on the opposite edge, on this side here. And then I will just place pins in between these 3 that I have just placed, in a way that my fabrics are all aligned, and I have now the first seam ready to be sewn. To sew this, I will be doing a basting stitch again, just to secure the lower cups to the main fabric of the upper cup, and then when we finally sandwich everything inside and we sew to the other part of the upper cup, in that moment I will do the final stitch. Now comes that tricky part, when we have to place everything inside to be able to sew this on this edge. so I have to find a way. Maybe I leave this out and I just, yes, this is the best. I'm not gonna tuck in the strap. I'm just going to place a pin here to remove it out of the way. Yeah, and I'm going to start by pinning one edge. Again, if you have the notch marked on both fabrics, it's easier for you to align them and to make sure that they are completely aligned, aligning the notches, which I don't have, but I should, as you know. And I'm not gonna align it until the end. I'm just going to align it until the middle, because I will have to, once I get here to this point on my sewing machine, it will be very easy to slightly pull the rest of this fabric and align it. I just don't do it now, because if I pull here, it will pull the fabric on top here, and it's not easy then for me to sew. So I'm gonna just make sure that these edges here are very well aligned, pinning everything very carefully and sewing these 4 layers of fabric together. This seam, I'm gonna be using a straight stitch, but my machine has an elastic stitch, so I'm gonna be using a straight stitch, but elastic. If you don't have an elastic stitch, you can use a zigzag, or you can stabilize using the straight stitch. You can stabilize this with a seam tape that you can find on most stores. It looks like rubber elastic, but it isn't. It stabilizes the seam on elastic fabrics. So I'm gonna start, I'm gonna do until the end, and I'm gonna come back here to show you and reveal our cup with our strap. So you can see the stitch. It's a bit crooked. Every time I stopped, I came a little bit out of the way, but well, here it is. And now I just need to pull the threads to remove my basting stitches, and then we will use the sides to remove this to the right side. Here it is, the cup. Don't forget, it was not that hard, so I think it's possible if you want to do it just like I did. But the other option I gave you, it's also a good option. So this is the outside of the cup, and inside, as you can see, it also looks very nice. And now if you want, you can do the top stitch like we did here on this seam here, just to stabilize it, like we did on the lower here. But it's up to you if you want to do this stitch or not. On this test we did, for instance, we did the stitch and it looks pretty nice. But it's up to you to decide if you want to do it or not. And now we just need to repeat the process for our second cup, and we can then proceed. We have our cups ready. I'm gonna set them aside, and I did something wrong, so I had to go back, because what I actually did was sewing the sides with the 4 layers with enclosed seam, but then I remembered that we want to have the top edge with no seams visible, so I was doing it the wrong way. So the correct way is to place your right sides facing together of your main fabric and sew them together, and do exactly the same for your lining. This one this one with also the lining for the second fabric, and sew them separately, and then I will let you know what we will do next. So if you want to add boning on your side seam, and never mind that this is not with the same process that we did here, this was just a test, and as you can see the finishing is very bad. So but you can see that the side seam is very perfect, and if you want to insert a bone here to give a little bit more structure to the bikini top, you should sew the boning on your lining fabric. Side seams sewn together. If you want, you can still do a top stitch here, making the seam towards one of the sides and doing a top stitch on top here. If you want to, this is the time to do it. I'm not going to, so I'm gonna place right sides facing together and align my fabrics from the back until my cradle, and I'm gonna reverse this to this side because I want to pin on the side where I'm going to apply elastic. So I'm going to apply elastic from one edge to the other here, and again from one edge to the other here, and then I'll be back on the table. At this point, you should have your lining a little bit smaller than your main fabric, because once we do the sewing that we are going to do right now, applying the elastic, you will see that everything will be in place and we will not have excess fabric, neither on the main, neither on the second. Now we have the elastic applied, and the next step is to do another stitch. So you open the seam that we have just sewn, and you place the seam towards the side of your lining, and you do a top stitch from one edge to the other. When you do this top stitch, you can do it as a zigzag or any elastic stitch you want. Never go to the side of the main fabric or it will be visible. It's the same that we did here, okay? A zigzag or an elastic stitch on the sides of our lining. Repeat the same on the other side. With the understitch done, you can see that when you flatten the fabrics against each other, you will have the same exact size from the lining and the main fabric. And this will enable you to don't have excess fabric on the side of your lining. I think I did it too much. And now I have excess on the lining. Let me see this side. Usually this works perfectly. I've used this technique a lot of times lately, but maybe this time I did it too much. I did too much. No, it's okay. Okay, so to help me in the future, what I will do now is do a basting stitch to stabilize the second fabric, the lining, the stabilizer, on my swimwear fabric. This is very stretchy, this is non-stretchy, so it's quite hard to work with them together. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a lot of pins, and I'm gonna pin the entire edge where I'm gonna have the wire line. And once I have this pinned in place, I'm gonna do a basting stitch just to help me on the next steps when I need these two fabrics to be together, to be sewn with the cups. You can skip this step if you feel very comfortable sewing, If the fabrics have the same stretch percentage, sometimes you don't feel the need to do this, but in this specific case I really find it's easier if I do a basting stitch securing these two fabrics together.